Amen. Pastor Asamoah, at my hand if Pastor Asamoah, if you didn't mute, we will mute to Casadia.
Oh, sorry. For Yamayin, I made up. Yadanyamia say, and then so 1 million Aquenia. But was somewhat menka.
That's what I said.
Yadanyamia say 1 million Aquenia na the Humidaimu. What's next year now? Casache, Yada Empire Yabonina so assay. And him said there be a Yankopon a one sem at the Mayan. Now, many empire at a coffee boy and Hopa said, Sing ya miss Maya hoarding, the 18 in anno, a bit me an answer so I saw a bram. Now, you bit me the Ayajuma, and yes, not quite to see a yeno, qua. But me bon pie, say, and yakwa. And net year twa addition, ye shall see some time ago. So now, me sure say, and I'm say, ye shall see a check a credit intino. Ebia refie kakraba ewo baby enti yebeka aka ye ho yebeka aka ya dwene ho kakra na ya hwese betimi aka ya enti we de mo yemfa ya disuan yesu and there's nothing like a wrong answer say anko yi ani atene no but yes say you're wrong enti dia last time I share you about the book of Romans, and no, dear na wokai, dear Ben be na you ya wokai. I bet to me, a dear kaka, ya hona fe yet me out to us free ho. It ever fun as a recap, put the Yusuya no. Obia obetimi adum yebia no dia na wokai from last week. Sorry, it wasn't last week. Last time I share no. And of course so be pejan nsa na wa hwa ma me na. In case me hu yeah. Ebusia for more.
No, pastor.
And I say question more identity a man fifty e wa wo bremu.
Yes, na. Oma no 10.
Okay.
Me say me
That's right. And it said anti Regina Neka say
Auntie Christy.
And it said Uncle Kofi Beboa.
Of course, we say yeah.
Oh, now basically I cry you no offer one fruit. All right, okay. And the moment kaka Auntie Christy say or Kaiba the real kakra, but you try to remember something. Into me, sure said the na me da kwesi dim come. I think she better try na additional bembe na irenfi imucha sana na dia refieba. But yanka kaya ho. E da kwesi they say there I think so I just start to Emma Obiel.
Yes, am I confused and say over try for home. Yeah, and Nancy am try for am I confused. Yeah. But your friends say
Romance.
Your friends.
Yeah. Okay. It me triggers kakra na hwese beboa.
Nani eti sesa.
Okay. But next time I buy, and I'm the list number 2, and next time I buy, number 1.
It was introductory section or the mine.
Okay.
We studied the scene of what the Roman, how the book of Romans came about.
Yeah.
And I may try to make kai.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is easy. It was just introductory. Unyanko book na nkasem. I'm so ma o study the scene.
Yenyam me book nim na menim se ebia even en nekra ebe biemu a menim se na ebetimi abiemu a because we need to set the scene in anti you come near can be bia na ehunu where to pitch it, but you are right. Yes, you will see certain. Mokaya ye kan nipa enan bi a enya omunsu enya book no enya omusunsunsu aso mokai bi ye bo nipa nine bi in fact nipa doors but me mu 9 prominent people bi a book enya omusunsunsu aso.
The book no I think a priest be or software be.
Yeah.
The dean na refi.
Okay.
Do you know? I don't know. Say or no, was it the Methodist? No, not Methodist. I think it's all kind of Methodist. How the setting up of the Methodist came about. The one now.
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther, yes, that's right. That's right.
And card na BM so koya adwuma wo no ya adwuma wo Africa. And them so sabai or bar some meeting.
Good.
Now obi yeah bibisa but the names na we Africa.
Good. Into the abene yes I said the beya beka aka nti no ye bia na ebetitim na me sure say team be me ansa na ya fe beka aka because they are very very important. Na ye ka say ho na troye in Paul samukaya ye sha free Paul and no yes so yes start free so enti ye ka say Saul ankasa no ye wo hene e wo Israel me dru ba bi no so ka e hye nkom te say enti nkrofo busa say na Saul no so hye nkom ono so ye prophet ana samukaya ina ye de ba Saul so na ye kire say Saul we say na free Tarsus no actually obey Paul na Apostle Paul no ono de na de wo tru ni nyina na nye Saul nkom hye ni bi keke but na ye de nyame yi na de ne ho ade a kire no ina o de tru e de ne ye kaifa Paul ho ye kai tama ye wo no Paul. Okay. So mokaya ye ka say 5 AD into 5 years after time wa BC if free BC call AD no 5 AD into you know next time everybody mebusa 5 AD number 5 ena yesi na ne kromu ye he ne kromu ne din no hwe ne din na he na ofri
Tarsus,
that's right. Enti you say Tarsus no and then you behwe map bi nti be hu be dia Tarsus no but Tarsus ewo be bia ene Turkey ewo say ina you say wosua ade ewo Gamaliel ase enti no ka yi Sahendrins no ina not Casamians enti no a scholar because not Latin or Greek not Hebrew. Na ye kai emfie dodo ye ka se ode ye adwuma no Paul ye kai emfie dodo ye ka se ode ye adwuma no yeso ye adwuma about 35 years in public ministry. Inti we say nsnyambo a maka 5 AD time ye wo no ye adwuma for 35 years. Inti ye 55 no ya do so but I hope some be kai. But nen kwana mu nyina no ko Roman premier no first one second one no ko ho na okowu e wo ho enti free ho ina ye ba omo a book no a wo tro ye no a influence wo mo pa a ye ka ho asem no na ye try say e be ka aka no na no kre ye bo enipa ennan ebidin enipa ennan no de kan ye ka origin no within the year 185 to 256 in a Nenkwa Udina Sassunina, but now yet the first important person yet Nahua Semifri said Sabreno Nenchre be Koswa na enye bako Gnosticism. Gnostics for no chese enipa was the more honchre war na chese wo ben heaven no ben yamin to omu live in a very very lifestyle bi an shadam koye. But origin interpretation of the book of Romans boy man confront to this big problem. Ina the na edakwesi canon Augustine of Hippo, no, North Africa. You heard Augustine, nani principle nyina na say e was o man no e force nipa e ma wo sum nyame inti se wote ho na se o man no e sum nyame na se wan sum nyame a ene na e was o man no hyehyɛ no yedi di inti there was sometimes okra na ekoye se entokwa he was involved in trying to force people to worship God. But okay, kind of book of Romans, we will call Melan ekonya this experience, you know. Or by a question of Obusa near say, why in a use a bass as or for so? Now, why not use this silent violence and now and Tawantawadi a jail such in Chino. Who did towards whom did Christ use violence? One and Yesu a day or how? And yet a force on a session China one so and a free honor, the entire Augustine, one of the church fathers. Said the life in Yinano or committed to a non-violent approach, Sinipano de Nakuma, a bemenyame. And on one history no account, said the Babylonian the biggest change, the book of Romans. And now Yaka Martin Luther, and who said, yes, dear Fwedier. In Martin Luther, and I'm hoping say a kai. If you're bringing, but give you a quiz, crack, because a DNA kai for Martin Luther. In him say, on the face off with the Catholic Church and Church, normal church, they're not trying to say, and Niema and Chishebi Breamo, a defaso Jessica, a sum Yamania, they are dealing in an. Enya dia what resem enti or proteste into no start what we call Protestantism in religion. Emma what you 95 theses said the ball the gates will be abekin kan will be a train be abekin kan yehunu eniema ojidi se asore na ya enye inti afi ebe one Rome na Pope ningina benyansa was work the biggest shake up in Christian history. Now okay kind na Asamoah Roman chapter 1 or say the righteousness of God. You drew why you kind of text and me preempting, but that was one of the biggest texts for so the biggest reform and shake up in Christian history. Martin Luther and Shasi, but the name for Martin Luther near say, and also there was some time where I was saying, so be I am not going to we shouldn't even entertain and any discuss and any argue. Just kill the person, silence the person. That was how he was. But after the conversion, and the conversion so being the conversion so reading Romans, our true conversion. He became somebody like Augustine Ayakan Huasemi. And the last one I can Huasem, I think it will be Trash or Bekai at the question I said. Now about Methodist, yes, John Wesley, 1703 to 1791. Very, very respectable man and not on life and everything is predicted for him. Because Cambridge. Oxford. Abaye priest. So he priest. Which a mayor, and he left that glory in the cathedral and introduced a new method of holiness. I friend Methodist, and now they started the Methodist movement. So we can devote our life to pure holiness and true Bible study. And these were, 4 of the many people are the book nunya in so enti enne de me pese yesusu ho no but obi was mbisa bi wo ho de yakan ha we de kan ya dwene keke enti nya nko so papa but obi was mbisa bi a betimi de aba. Okay, as a mbisa bi ani ho de a enti said na Mr. Kwesi Kano, and the Emepesi Yesusu ho a very, very simple question. I believe, sir, it me you will free where you bet me as I see a book on him. Why did Paul write this influential letter? Nyankopon inspiration about Paul so some of them trust and woman way saying DNT in our Troy, and I said, Dien. And I know what true say a bit to me aboa, but never say a resolve problem. Ben and never huntia Paul a true and woman. Now, a important see is a question we say and if we say, so what sasem we say a seer a bema said the over kind na bet sheni maybe a seer and so yabem. Inti no and once in bisa and ambassador. We are question I may boost mess better seeing in a bit me a year no. In fact, me boarding at random. Now we are no say D&T Paul a Troy and woman in saying Uncle inspiration home a can, but or Troy D&T no Troy. I'm just saying the question I say. Additionally, you see on to me come Macassa. Enti pamcho ye mompa ye kakra na echa se nyame therefore don't do yesro se kasa kire o ma ehia onkonkron no wo nchen se betimi a kire ni ate won nsem wase eda wase mediatifo nyina hye won sa bi adwene mu bi akoma mu amehye wataba akese na se na wo kasa kire o ma e wo Yesu din mu eni ye bompa ye amen.
Amen.
Okay, enti edenti ina Paul etroye. So when me screen is what me the map be ato. But you mu screen here pa.
You.
Okay. Me try use me kenza no but so wo hwe map here. Ekire Bonibeka say Holy Lands ne the New Testament churches no baby a happen here. Now the time the map we see at on here say ye be hwe 2 books and now 2 letters are Paul Troy. Any reasons are what they Troy. Near they are compare the nympha the book of Roma. Near we see betimi ehunu enso ye demo. It's the first book and person here found the book of 1 Corinthians. Koronto for me edikan. Paul ngoma wo Troy aye Koronto for me edikan no. Edian inti in or Troy. Now first no e was edikan ete Corinth. Corinth was a city state. Into Corinth ne yekro, but a yekro a name never got to be a Lazenbeck and as a San Marino and I say one city a year or mine on its own. So I'm not Corinth for tier. But now Corinth into her map Yeshua. My name is Muhumekezano.
Aye.
Okay. So what shall I say? This is what we call the Peloponnese Peninsula. As a term, I friend of Peloponnese here, our Bible. Now, this part, and the rest of this part is Greek, as I say, so ubi my say epo eda hase. Now, Toronto Chrono, kura a war epo nano enti ewo we port city. Now, port no because sa time I was saying no trade ni dwade ni ade ade ekoso ni nyina no omo befa ahase na edeko enti so wo beton niema wa hase anase wo de niema ba wokoto niema beton anase move akwayi a you need to go through Corinth. Enti because of that in na Corinth ho no sika wo ho pa. I mean you can compare it to a place like Tema. A ship si ba ne haboni ade enti sika wo mining sana na Corinth etie. But obia watchna a port city bia ne nim say e ho so bone wo ho pa because for some reason bone wo ho pa. Enti sa asori na ye Corinth asafo no Paul na ne ba ha say ina obete asori no ina oja ho na oja ho no na eniema ene obra ekoso Corinth omamu ho no ebi awura Corinth asafo nim. In fact, one studies I will be compare Corinthian church to a baby to say Las Vegas. A drama more headquarters we are Simubako Las Vegas. Everybody knows. Just near my coso no a red light district a crown a money team the coso Las Vegas no. But other things they say cha and a woody name babasa. And sana na Corinth ucha Corinth asaf Corinth krona you need to so picture sana ya maye koso enne e wo ye man enti ebra Paul free asafunim awo okoye no according to the eniema ye kan free Corinth enwuma na nkasa minimum no Paul chire di enti ano wo tro 1 Corinthians oka because he was addressing specific issues. And offer a bit to say 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 10 to 12. Or say enuanom mesremo minua mema wo Yesu Kristo edimu se munyina mo beye kro na monne mo mo benya mobejje mo ho atu mobenyanti asema mo ho die obi ka ene die won so ka no nyanti asema sa nipa no na empapamu ana divisions die eni kwan se ebamu but that you be perfect, united in mind and thought wadwene mu no wakoma mu no munya entiase. My brothers and sisters, some from Chloe's household have informed me that there are quarrels among you. Obi free Chloe fie abeka kire me say quarrels ye den
Ntautawdie
aha
twi no beka ne say o say mpapamu.
That's right. The entire na sometimes members me can directly from tree no yana me say wo awote ase in your language. But either that the kind no correct and papa munta wanta wadie ane apre wontwi wonka ne those ne manema ekoso mu no ya beka kire me say sa ne me na ekoso mu. In fact I say what I mean is this: one of you says I follow the amount of time no bisi me Paul bisi me Apollos bisi me Cephas bisi me Christo obia wo ne group or join into factions ne niema enunti ina metro sakrate. That is the first indication that you see when you get into Corinthians. And ma straight away what the whole book is going to talk about. But there is also another text where the Adam wo you know Mr. Kan 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 1 emame. Na question am ebusa ne say ye ebusa die nti a Paul tro Korinto nwoma no. Ye diko ehu baako wa ha. Ye hwe 7 verse 1 so de oka wa ho.
Na de mo tro e no ho de. Eye ma woni pa se onfa ne ho enka oba.
Okay. Into the first part me also there the motro ba ye no de. The motro ba ye no de. And it means that the Corinthian church Paul ba ye obete ye no. Uja ho no there were problems and problems no were so many. One of them was divisions because the Paul bet ye no the Apollos so chire the Cephas chire And the obi so akọ say we na Yesu kire no no obi was interpreting it differently. And there was what we call a theological and doctrinal issue problems created divisions. But uko wanim no, Paul also make it very, very clear, say, they wrote a letter to him about specific ways to deal with things. And it was said, dear. And scholars agree, say, that letter, no, in fact, it was one of the manhunt letter for some time. Throughout the world, everybody was looking for letter Ben a Toronto for Troy, and they wanted to find it. No more the gay archives, near archaeology, near there. They said, has anybody found it? They said that we haven't seen that letter, and that letter seems to have been lost. Into you name exactly what Toronto for Troy say, Paul, Emeka Huasem. But we get the indication, say, oh, say no, Mommy and Tron come up Paul, not Paul match. In fact, some of the discussions, actually say, a bit say Paul, no, me and Tron in command of his say, oh no, no, apostle, on can't say Peter and James, who many years to 19, or no, the end a fake. Into kind of Toronto, when they drew baby, Paul is also stamping his authority, so also apostle. And this is a theme that runs through because so what anytime I walk kind of book be there are some verses that you can now start relating to it. Some of the problems I need say na Paul to address apart from divisions about theology differences and the omatro babies specifically no. So what kind the whole book of 1 Corinthians some of the problems are no more discussed on a bit immorality a drama a personal dispute in tokwa near huntentem class any idea. Then you can imagine say baby a port city a binum was you can see this class wars say happen. There was also serious issue with our real name pneumonia the because so there was obi oho na maame na omo just omo ye niam abasa e wasore nim na obi ani na no muntimi nka ene ese ye de sum nyame. There was also problem with Christian liberty. In Corinthians, there's a lot given to liberty. In a way, worship, but it ends. Okay, the last part of Corinthians 15, it points you to a resurrection and the coming of Christ. It says, "Yehunami empro, yebesori, yakushie nyame." And these were the things Paul dealing with the issues. So that is the first indication. Book be a kind of tracing be but modern so behunu the purpose and the reason why the book was written. Yeah, the Corinthians be one example. What about 2 Corinthians? Into 1 Corinthians, Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, so dear near frame. Well, 2 Corinthians, this is the logic. There's a problem in a omotro letter, Ekoma Paul. And Paul back, I've been dealing with all these problems in the first letter. To a very long letter, and we're dealing with all this. No, the man Titus. Say Titus. Fakone church asafun. And a Titus the buyer. The best church asafuni na. And asafuno echi the watroni tomb. Until they repented. Omo repente, In fact, some of the people are not very stubborn. According to it, they sanctioned them, they punished them, and they had to relieve them. Until sorrow became better. Until Paul, 2 Corinthians, and he was writing to thank them or track or that or mercy. Say, and somewhere a catcher or ometie no my yasumeti. It is all kind. Baby, it is 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 14. That become very quickly, Anna. 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 14 to 15.
Eno ye no kore na kuma wo mo ho pi broso na okai mo nyina sitie sade mo di suro ne ahopopo agye no Amen.
Amen. And this is, so I want to focus on this. So because it remembers the obedience of you all. Intimate mo ho me ho free say dia me ka kire mo no mo de ye adwuma mutie na afei asafo no has been better. Last week na me ne a for youth, Birmingham youth. Na ye ya desua bi na adesua na yesua no was Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 14. About someone omo nyini entwe konua. Because now young people maybe no ever problem that text no say one unbeliever will be in the so me bit me aware na na said the. We had a very nice afternoon and had this discussion. But you see, once you get into 2 Corinthians, now you see, because one of the things that it became very apparent last week to us, all addressing this issue, there was one other problem and he needed to deal with, and that is where he paused at chapter 6 to deal with. And the problem was said, yes, I pray any boneni yema yeka ho asem na jai de nanso nipa ni bi wo ho a o mafa adomu a adomu a yeka ho asem se nyame be ma ya adom no mafa adom ne nko a to be the main issue omode ye de omope. And Paul spent time at chapter 6 to deal with it. A very nice study. One of these days, I believe, and Udili with that issue said, yes, there is nyamia domino, but there's also the law, and therefore you must be able to separate the believer. I would tell nyamia sem nenya so the adomne nyamaniema na akatakata ni dibone ene ade. And but it gives you an idea why the whole of 2 Corinthians was written. The entire Roman we know clearly what to expect, and so if you know why he wrote. Another issue, Romans another church, Coronto Ediano was one church. We know that the Corinthian was a city in one church as the Corinthian church. Yeah. But Galatia for Enyuma or Troy, and also DNA is free. Well, Mommy and her map on the beam. Say, Pacho Muhumap no, Muhu screen.
Open your screen, Papa.
Oh, and to move his screen, no.
Maybe I'll call slideshow.
I mean, who screen it? Who screen?
Okay.
Maybe I'm in coma.
And Ebia elder, yeah, will check what certain
okay.
I see the screen.
Okay. Any I just said that unya a spiritual and now the follow. But the end to us. So where screen is what made the circle be to her say this is where na map wa baby a modern day Turkey ewo. I would say Greece ewa ha say in Italy wa ha say. And poor missionary missions or call and then sorry or call a quantity in our area has in an all working. Now, over sa peninsula here, has say yeah, the same thing in a big ewaha. So, what kind of book of Acts are actually and sorry, I'm sure so what kind of book of Acts and that's what kind of Paul letters now in crowd it be Cilicia and Tarsus, a honey a war Paul, Nikrumuni, but Antioch. Any baby a Christopher no, you from first time I from as a Christopher no, you see a Cappadocia in a year you were hey now Asia. So what kind of Bible also can say Asia Minor? He's referring to this part of Asia Minor. In a Pontus, any Bithynia, a port aka ho asempa Lycia and Pamphylia, Iconium and Lystra. These are all Derby. These are all cities yet ho asem. But the entire map we see at honey say Ohe Galatia na a whole region. It is like a country on its own. A country because Turkey is a very big area. This space a very big area. Imagine say about a quarter of the whole country, in a friend Galatia. Galatia wasn't a church, but it was a region. Into according to say metro letter akoma a Christopher a Ashanti region and as a northern region and as a metro letter akoma all the people in SS County and as a Berkshire County. Bibi Sara na Galatia. Into Galatia na Paul was not addressing one particular church, but he was addressing an act which was happening around the area. And then you see free ho. So what kind we know say these are all people from say oh kind trace them no Bible na so to say amamemu for and I say proselytes and I say omo me can say amamemu for yam fan say omo munye Jew for mabegye die no. These are the people I refer to. Inti we mo no nye omo ya wo omo say Jew for na emom omo ye nipa omo ti omo kromo a binom so mabosom ne ade nyame enam Paul so etu kwan abeye canvas ne campaign wa ha no omo nyina de omo ho amanyame asakra atete sorry wa ha say. This is where the New Testament churches was happening. Now we know say Galatia hono tama Paul beti asori no wie ya wo koye no ina nipa ne bi ba ya omo ye Jew for ina omo se hwe na mono man start and twetwa motwetia ne ade a munya mesom na amosum ni nyina na nko ba bia because asem no promise o de ma Abraham no o se e wo se wutwetia ansakra na se obedi mra ne so a wadi na waye nyamesom ni. This was a problem for these people. I think see yesua ho ade pen e wo Galatia for no. But this was the big issue. Na Paul e wo so odi ho djuma. And what did Paul do? Ofri ho what said this issue aba no. You said you see can no. First Galatians chapter 1. Or say, I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. This was the problem. This is not like Toronto for divisions, woman. We're saying people turning to a different gospel. And chire foforo nipa bi aba na otoaso and adam mama on kan twi no emaye patro kan twi ni maye ebeboa
eya me nwanwa so mo twe mo ho entem se afri de wafre mu Kristo adom mu no ho kọ asempa foforo mu nso enya asempa foforo biara na emom nipa bi ewo ho wo hamo na wo pese o say Kristo asempa no na se mpo yen ana abofo bi efri soro babe ka asempa foforo bi kire mo eka de ye ka kire mo ho no a onue. Amen.
Amen. Enti die na Paul etro Galatia momen
na asempa wode ma Galatia fo no obi di foforo bi aba abaji Kristo ho asempa na fi wo mu enu ntina na ni abre.
Good. And nipa no mba no so ye Jew for omo ye Jew for enti the teachings are na ewo ho no ye say Jew for no church say so when twa wo twetia na when nimra na so krogen a forget about heaven. Acho muntie ni ye so when nimra na so na when twa wo twetia forget about heaven. Ina panimfo wo mo say na ye abon kokra na ye beda twetia ina mrenyin so a wo kase ye disu ye boy homodin say be disu but said they more ye. And when they are talking about the mrana, they are not talking about the 10 commandments. They are talking about the Levitical law. Every law be a diama in the Torah be no also this one. this was creating so much problem. Inti aso na ebinom say afedi ade no kra na ye ebejai because ye ntumi say na because Paul ba nye say na obeka kire. Paul say wugidi a nyankopon adom no e wo ho ma wo na dom no betimi am wanyankwa, and this is why we have accepted. And nonti in every Christian be a problem on the law. Say ni kwansi ye dimra so no, they will quote Galatia. Why? Because Paul said, look, mo tia mo be church say we Jew for na nkrofo ni ade ade so na you know. Mo refi say even time asem we say ba mre bia ye ba ho Jerusalem. Emma James ne apostles nyina be hia ye. Emma ye ka say no, nyankopon an church sa, Yesu ba wan church sa. O ka say wugidi adom no ebema wo ho afi. Enti enkotwa utwetia nemu memra no di emra nyame de me wiase nyina no, which is the 10 commandments in di no so na sam rank tenkete e ka ho se you know fatade we say na say 2 colors ni nyina ambe na say wo de moska antade kra na say wo sha what somra no. These are all unnecessary. Enti munyai san church no na mun focus on the grace, because the grace will save you. Enti throughout the book of Galatians, Paul is talking about Adom. And because of the context in Intino, or suppressing the need to follow the law. And you can see what to expect when you are reading the book of Galatia and Galatia 1. And Paul says or can wasem very, very directly. Now, me the same woman we say me no edi kan if we say who be say in the book of Romans. In the book of Romans, Paul enka adeporting tia or tro. Until you need to pick it up by reading it. This will be actual letter bro. Now we name the intia watro. Now we can letter na hunu the intia ebi awotro sa na bebi sa akoye. Inti so bu sa question here say adenti na Paul etro enwoma no a. It is one of the topics enipa tro more books have been written about this topic. Why Romans than any other book Paul atro. Why? Because it is the longest. This is the longest letter. And he is addressing some things. Inti Obi eso hase was in your tray because of this. Obi so tray because of this. Winting or tray. Inti yansu ya beko kakra mu ni yehunu. Then we will make up so we can make a decision. Inti ebuayen emase obi can be na so ko to free Romans. You know where the person is coming from, but so once who church with that background, you know, ubehunu bebia e woso oko. Mama Paul has na me musa question kakra. So far the ya kan ni the yesuan no. Me won sem bisa me no. The first question here say, e dienti na Paul etro Korinto ngoma, e dienti na Paul tro Galatia ngoma. Quickly, you refresh your mind and sani atoaso. Na we dey me pese obi a won kasa ne ebe kasa fi se e ade na yesua. Me hwa ha se ya me obi and W media wa ha. Royals nana wa ha. Anti-Christia kasa kakra ba te da Kofi Nyan kasa Eda Francis ne Rebecca Mama Hannah also Vida K Isaac J. Munyina mo ho mon kasa afrema. Enti mo obi ma me pacho to aso.
China me who said the entire tre Galatians said Galatians said bra or call ya or call titi in sorry will reading hono no ja hokoe no na jiufo bi so aba ebe ye encheche bia je say emfa kwamu kura nti ma o tre sa Galatians.
Good, very simple. Thank you, Ada. Afeyango Koronto ni so before.
Say Koronto for and so am here who send na kro no tie Maybe a necrony war, nothing, they told Las Vegas, when I just say, near my neck or so, horror, I know she pa. I don't hear say, got Chiras of no wow view, when I just say, near my coso, say, crony no, asa abena bewura asafunimo.
That's
I
right.
don't know na say Paul esa just ndina eye ha no na ne ya say ne ma ete sa e koso na say ne how kan say hu ne koso Las Vegas say the be masem chacha gomoni ari ade say ne na kuro no tie no ntino na ma no akoba ne sa nti na na Paul so address o.
Good. It is that my idea. Obia benya software must be more obia certificate. My idea. Now, question to ask you on here say, and to say, no, so what kind baby to say 1 Corinthians? What do you expect from there? Again, I also were expecting from 1 Corinthians, for example. And now kind Galatia, again, I also were expecting, knowing why Paul wrote. Again, I also were expecting.
Yes, but it's even of Paul of Futio encounter Abraba na ekoson.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah. The Paul of Futio, but now we are breaking it down, kakra. One will say because we are talking about Odo. Because of a drama money near me or no. So what baby Paul talk about Odo ankasa love. You need to go to 1 Corinthians. What baby Paul better talk against a drama more. You need to go to 1 Corinthians. Into I think 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the whole of the chapter, no, Paul talk about the need of genuine proper love. Or say, hope, charity, and adiba. But before then, but also another thing being able to stick with the Nyamia church and to say or share about costumes be an air cost or many more than you know, say the dietary, because not dietary things, the and so issue. And 1 Corinthians, you need to go there. Who may be about the resurrection, and you need to go to 1 Corinthians. But so who may be about grace, 1 Corinthians, I mean, that is not where to look for it. You need to go to Galatians. Who may be more about Emra, you need to go to Galatians, but you need to go there with a caution. Say, Paul was dealing with Nipa Omobi and said, your life in now must be law. And you need to look at the law from a different angle. Also, him running free, and it's really important to say, no, it's good, but it's not good enough. You need to understand why. Apostle be someone fast we say Mary, then it can help you. And so you go through the rest of the books now. For example, the book of Philemon and Philemon about slavery and submission to master. So we be on social justice. You need to go there, but you need to go there with a caution. Say, not Paul deal with a very, very specific case. If I would be away free in responsibility, so the problem that ye Christoph we move a lot of us if it's near said obi back of a text to be no a kind. Now a confused the and why? Because we are reading it said no kind and yet the actually nature, but we don't allow the Bible to be its own teacher. And nuntina yeah, kind Romans I mean 2 lessons in the Roman book because it's important to say we need to go because it situates the book. We need to see where the book can be positioned. And Sakura na yashe additional say. Into the question here said, why did Paul write Romans? Mama, you hear some of the suggestions are unfortunately the book doesn't start say and I'm how we say in a Paul made sure. That's right. Okay. And the first reason enipa bebre eka say Paul, a man through the book of Romans, the longest letter, the longest literature in history. Say na Romofo no ehia Paul o matenenka se Paul ye adwuma bebre pacho mamenko machina menko kire made se wo hwe ha se ya mom who screen no hello okay so baby keza ina me no ahana Israel as na hana Jew for no ewo
okay
yeah in a Paul ya won around ahase baby which is Tarsus enti Jew for no a region ewo hase o kan Old Testament ya no ka Lebanon any other ade nyina no these things na ewo ha now Paul be ye Christo ni no no yes Jew for no were not interested as some be ko area hase baby enti hello okay Jew for no were not interested as some be ko bonten however so be na so asem ne ko baby na then they follow up say omo correcting into Paul missionary journeys or ye ni na nese mo kan ni na this area na no auto around him in Greece any ayiwa but all along no Paul had never traveled here Rome because we Rome baby a Rome war any baby Paul adwuma no na you need to come through the sea for months and send wait to me after in fact for you to come to Rome no you need to sail efa say baha and send wait to me about Rome ewa and it was a long journey. Anytime Paul because of Rome no to ashada because you needed to go there plan and say over akoche ewo bibi sa na koye enti why ena Paul etro letter akoma Rome asori ewo Rome no baby a ono anko hoda but nyamesom akopie ho one of the reasons so the media can say Paul needed Rome. Paul needed Rome no actually say no wa ye dwuma awie na no person will call the western part of Rome sanke extend the map na ufri ho na France and Spain and Portugal up to Britain. That is where we call the West in biblical times. Now, one of the suggestions, say, not Paul, try say, or be free east, no ako west, ako kan nyamisemono. Now Antioch was too far, so bet me a base wo no ako kan nyamisemono or west. Until he wanted to set up a new base, Rome, no to me. A translate the nyamsem kano ako western parts of a na omo ejina sa reason we say so e explain the entire Paul etro engoma no omo kan Romans chapter 15 verse 14 to 25 verse no wakakra but uncle da memo kan very quickly amaye Romans chapter 15 verse 14 to 25. These people are saying, say, Paul, not Paul, he has what the Rome, a base, what me evangelism towards the west. which is around Spain.
Verse 14.
Yeah, 14 to 25. Yeah.
Minuanom, ejutumu ewo mumu mo se monso papa ya hye moma na nimdie nyina aye moma to na mutumi tutu mo ho afonso nanso de enti a mede nam bebre metre nsem yi bi mabra mo se mede rebekai mu bio ni adom a onyankopɔn de adom me se menye Yesu Kristo sumafo se menye Yesu Kristo mu sumafo amaaman no mu menkɔhye onyankopɔn asɛmpa eno ho asomafo dwuma.
Okay, that first one, my hold on. Enti ahase no or kase or no Paul no the mission, the ministry, the dwuma or Jesus and nyame friend so meye say. Don't worry about Jew for, don't worry about amamamu for. And the kasa amamamu for na mo kai map no. The people in Galatia, in Pamphylia, in Gaul, these Gaul areas, in Asia Minor, this map I am modern day taking. Paul dream say, Nyame asem num free Israel see ho, then shita the rest. And that is his ministry to us on Pacho.
Oh, say
17.
Enti me wo Kristo Yesu mu ahohoaho a onyankopɔn fam enoma mu na me merensi me bo na merensi me bo se mebo biribi radin gidie Kristo nam ne so ayama amamamufo sitie ɛwɔ asɛm ne adwuma mu nsɛnkyerɛnne ne awanwade tumi so honhom tumi so na maka Kristo asɛmpa no awie firi Jerusalem ne kro a atwa ho ahyia so akoduru Jericho nanso faako a mebɔ mmɔden sɛ mɛka asɛmpa no ɛnyɛ deɛ ɔbɔ Kristo din ɛwɔ hɔ pɛn na manto obi fapem so na mmom sɛdeɛ wɔtwerɛ sɛ wɔn a wɔnka wɔn ne ho asɛm no behunu na wɔn a wɔnteɛ no nso ɛbɛte ase. Amen. Up to 21.
Yeah. Enti muti bibi wo mu ɔse ɔmpɛsɛ ɔbɛka ɔbɛyɛ bibi ɔmo a ɔmate asɛm no ɔmpɛsɛ ɔbɛ waste time wɔ ho mpacho muti bibi saa.
Ai.
Na mmom ɔpɛsɛ wɔyɛ dɛn.
Ɔpɛsɛ kɔ baabi a ɔmo nti Kristo as ɛdinda ɔmo hunie na ɔmo nteɛ da ɛhɔ na ɔpɛsɛ ɔkɔ.
And yet the time where Paul Casasem was saying, time where no one making most of the missionary journeys. Actually, the eastern part blocks now what a ten sorry what to say, go on and Corinth, finish these places in now what a ten sorry no where we ain't now a fair no bet what he means by Omo Monte Assembly Dano, Pacho to us.
22. And not to run so and I nyame kwan nsi a mama mo nkyɛn na afei mesane aba ɛha yi bio na mefiri mfirinhyia bebree mahwehwɛ mo nkyɛn hɔ bɛnti da biara a metu ɛkwan makɔ Spania no mani da so sɛ mɛba bɛfa hɔ a mehunu mo anim na sɛ megye mani kakra wɔ mo nkyɛn ansa mogya me kwan akɔ hɔ.
Okay, I think the tree now said that may papa, but mote so say kind 24 no say brebiara or yeden.
It's the biara metu kwan kɔ makɔ Spania no.
Aha. Enti
mani da so sɛ mɛbɛfa mo hɔ mehunu mo anim.
Okay, enti was starting in nyina no waka sɛ baby asɛm na hyeta ne de on waste ne time na fei obɛkɔ baabi a ɔmonte asɛm ne da Now, okay, 22 now. So this is the reason why I have so often been hindered from coming to you. But now, since I no longer have any room for work in these regions, all the regions, every region has a church. And since I have longed for many years to come to you, and pay me bring my person, but the entire mean to me money, I said, no, busy, but now I hope to see you in person as I go to Spain. Inti afedia my mabisi be free has say no Spain. And I need you. I need you because I say and to be helped by you on my journey. Some on my journey. If he said, me person me kono me ba mon chen ma betena mon chen mo gya me kwan na magudie kakra mo de be ma me no me de akobo adwuma ye ko no Spain no. Pacho mutia, does it make sense? Mutia say. This is why people say Paul needed Rome. Why? Because he wanted to go to the West. The West, Spain, France, part of, Spain, towards Germany, and up to Netherlands, up to Portugal, because this was the new route our friend West. And then the other thing he said, no weird Germany in the East, until he felt to say there was no need to stay on the East, but to expand the work. He needed Rome because Rome was a strategic city, a city closer to the mission field. And that is the first reading. Please don't forget this point because don't forget this point. The pointer the summarizing is Paul needed Rome in order to evangelize the West, which is Spain and surrounding. In fact, 23 but now that there are no further opportunities for me in these regions, since I have longed for many years to visit you, I hope to see you in my way to Spain. And after that, I have enjoyed your company for a while, and you can equip, that word we use only a technical word, equip nature, say you need to support me with everything, with money, with people, more massacre, I can on my missionary journey and go. And now, however, I'm on my way to Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Say, it's Jerusalem. Me and come up in Subim. Inti our Corinth. Time our trust our letter we say Corinth no. You said that other map on my year no. But Corinth, it was Greece, into Greece and China, not our or throw letter no aha baby. And he was making the journey to Jerusalem, Israel. Patromahu.
And
you can see that it was a very long journey to Jerusalem. And son of Rihwa, Wakase, Wabesiako, Rome. And we say, either say shape or so, and I say Ponkwechi. Into these journeys, you needed a lot of time. Okay. And that's the first reason. The second reason, no, you can go back to the first reason. And this is what some people are saying. Say because you said this part, Patrick, you can't free him.
You can't do.
No, you can't free him. Romans chapter
15.
Good. Romans chapter 15. It will tell you the story about Paul trying to go to Spain and what it is and using that to evangelize, or using Rome as a central point. The problem with this argument is and now the Paul can't we say Nintendo and nothing a man throw the whole of the chapter, I mean the whole of the letter of Romans is this. Yes, part of the book talks about this, but it is just only this part. The rest of the book has got nothing whatsoever to do with Obia or Tro, the longest letter to ask for money and to be equipped and use the place as a base. So they want to be the central pointer and they bit me a buana manakoye and yamisumuka walker. Because Senka no in the main reason that Paul they throw the book of Romans, which is a day and Quebec Huasem. Momentum Mamo. Senka the whole of the book on what Tro said. A bit me a buana manako evangelizes Spain, which is a dear bit now a Becca Huasem, a book name, and also Becca Huasem, a try watch training. A bit me adome.
Obeka sikasem obeka nipa beboa o mamu o mako visitation team.
Good. And we will find out to say and yes in the book of Romans yes that is it doesn't talk the only place a sikasem na ya ha and so you're not trying to equip no why in relation to other things. Until we need to, that is why a lot of people think say no. This is not the main, yes, it's one of the reasons or can't want some book, but it's not the main reason to write the whole of the book. Into then they ask that leads us to the next question. Any DNT in our through the book of Romans. Some people have also suggested, say, because of what we call metropolitan ambition. And I personally don't agree with this view. Metropolitan ambition, ASA. Oshe enkrai bubo sunyi na wohoni na. I think probably the biggest city na ewo eho kakra na eson. But it wasn't even as big as the biggest city around the whole region was Corinth. Because you have other cities to say Ephesus, you have other cities to say Philippi. All these were important cities, but they were still smaller cities. In fact, some of the description, which they say, were more of like in Krasie city. In Krasie as in villages, but in this city, you measure it up as to the metropolitan city, the big city. No. And people thought, say, na Paul, ayajuma wo Krasie ache. Na fedie when we say nyamisom Christianity no is a really strong thing for people to follow. And it needed to also appeal to people in the city. He wanted the biggest city of the time, which is Rome. Not only big as in the size, but big as in the power, the metropolitan center. Big as in its influence on other places, political influence, big in all forms. No here baby a hoson a obetimi anya asafo no amana ye strong. Enunti eno ye so obeko Rome. Enunti no tro sa letter we say na I prepare no for evangelism ewo eho. Now I personally don't agree to this, but some people give a lot of reasons, and I wouldn't even go into it because the problem is Senka no in a metropolitan evangelism in an Paul epistle or year, and we will learn say obeka enema on evangelism and affluency and mission in the cities and enema, but that is not what we read in the book of Romans. The third point, they are summarizing and additional. One of the reasons which I think is very, very compelling. Now, for us to understand this reason, we need to go back to look at some history. And the third reason, it is not true that Paul needed Rome. I wouldn't say it's not true. It may not be the case that Paul needed room. Then yes, sir, Paul here room as number one states. Or Paul in here metropolitan center as number two states. We here be a source room. NY. The third point is na room in here Paul. And don't think Paul a true letter will say now personally. with all the reasons other people name any that seems to be a very, very good reason. I want you to listen to it very carefully. Adenti in a yekase room in here Paul. And how do we come to this conclusion? Now, we need to go through the church. And we're not talking about churches. It was just one church, Christian church in Rome. In an Paul letter, just like in Corinth, Paul was writing this letter to the Christians in Rome, not in the region as in Galatia. Let's look at the history of this church and make kind of the history of Bracknell Church. And I'm the history of some of the churches that now, there was a big problem in Rome. And we think now the people needed Paul to sort out the problem. And what is the problem we are talking about? The church in Rome went through 4 stages. Whatever you forget today, I want you to remember this. The church in Rome went through 4 stages and 4 phases. The first phase, phase 1. Phase 1, na asore ni nyina no Jew for asore. Jew for omuji Yesu ediye. Because the first people omuji Yesu diye was not Amamemufo, was the Jews. Yesu by and he came to the Jews or Jew for him. In you obey ni nyina and to omuji diye no nyina were Jews by birth. In omuji Yesu diye. And bro mu tu kwan na no mu de nyamesom na ekọ but o man fa nkọ yie etese de Paul e de call e nti o fa asomafo no te se esuafo no Peter, James, any other na they took the church outside, but no more interest was in Jerusalem because they wanted evangelism to be based in Jerusalem, the center of Christianity. Then it were nipa Peter preach chire omo nyina na o preach chire wo say mo betia na mo de asem ne ko but yen preach ni de emeye no mkro mo ebe no wa ha. You need to come here to take some Christianity away. Until they were all here. Paul Barnum said, no, that is not what Jesus kind was saying. Move free Samaria and Judea and all these places. Spread the message until let us go out. But next you have for no market time. And that is why we say Paul was a very important part of the apostle, because on only apostle our fast he says no. More 12 no what na yesu nchen, you saw what Jesus did. He says the ends of the world, but you all are still stuck in Jerusalem and something needs to change. The good news near say because of their Paul decided to follow Paul's steps. And to be to say Thomas, he went as far as to India. And Ebinum ended up in Rome, Ebinum ended up in other places. For the first time they saw, said, no, yes, we need to go out. But the point is this: the church in Rome, a Jew for no Pentecost, the Jewish church. Into the Jews, no, on the form of the church. That is what we call the first phase. Into imagine, I don't want to draw a direct similarity, but 25th anniversary some years ago, I landed in Ghana. Now I can group and here heard the history of Ghanaian church in the UK. Now, one thing that was very clear to me, when I were all Ghanaians. And they wanted the church to be a Ghanaian church. And interestingly, so now Bano Abeka Ghanaian church now. And so Bia Bemusa or Beka Ghanaian church now, we have a problem. But Brunibeka said, logistically, we cannot accommodate the person. See, it's a problem for us because otherwise maybe could tear some camera a little closer to be the idea, you know, and it defines a nearma air coso within the church. Bibisa in a Jewish church now because Jew did not come from Rome. Jews came from the land of the Jews, which is Israel. Rome. No one was involved. As they had organically grown as a church. But that leads us to step 2. Now, this step 2 or phase 2, where some of the Gentiles are feeling no more miracles nearby. Oh, the more year come, we want to be part of it, we want to join. Until you have some of the Gentiles coming into the church. And that is very typical of every church started by ethnic groups. As the day go by, the church became mixed until you had people and among Jews, from Gentiles, coming into the church. This was phase 2. And of course, you would expect that from every cosmopolitan or metropolitan church or congregation. Now, it went on to the 3rd stage. Now, the 3rd stage, is one of the most interesting part of the church history. The 3rd stage, all the Jews left the church. All the Jews left the church, and the church became a Gentile church. Now, people say, how do you come to this conclusion? This is what happened. Hello, Pastor Matomenka. The church, now a year, Jews and Gentiles mixed up together. Run about AD 49. This is about, years kakra. Yesu call ye AD 49. In the emperor, a friend of Claudius, no Rome. Now Claudius, and in fact, as my maker, no be kind who has every Acts chapter 18. Claudius, no, succeed Caesar. Now, one of the things Caesar went to me, remember, say Roman Empire was expanding. But one of the things that Caesar went to me, he said, you cry to me, which is Britain. Rome couldn't conquer Britain. But Claudius, he was able to conquer Britain and made Britain a vassal, and I say, to Rome. Inti, Claudius ever very, very popular king. But now there was a problem in Rome, because one of the things he had to deal with was what we call civil unrest. Infighting. Now, Claudius, because of the strategy trying to fight and expand the empire, he allowed a lot of people to come into Rome. In fact, to even become a citizen here, money is so easy. So you become a citizen, you fight and you expand the kingdom, because he realized that you cannot keep only a small number of people and have an empire. Into my citizenship. Can you say, baby, interestingly, Paul Ekasa, baby, Felix said, and how did you become I'm a Roman citizen because I paid a lot of money and I'm a citizenship. So I say, and I say, winning crata, and I say, what kind of crata? This is a very old age problem. Very interesting. One of these days, I better talk about the early church and immigration. And it's a very, very interesting discussion. Ebema yehunu niema bi aye ye ne say we are not alone. Now nothing is really new in this. But anyway, Claudius time no, the Jewish population a war Rome had increased to about 40,000. Some people estimate about 50,000. And the question is, how do we come to this response? Because one of the things that Claudius here and he said, well, your census or my kind of a war on my name. And the unrest was between the 40,000 Jews and the Christians almost air rising, especially those who formed the church, the central church, Rome. And the problem unrest was about a man called Christos. Now the Christos is the Latin word Christ. So the Jews and the Christians were fighting about a man called Christos. I didn't hear. The Jews, they say, if you want to follow this Christos, you need to follow it by the law and you need to be circumcised. A Christopher say, Jews, you don't even know what you are talking about, because this Christos is the one who says, by grace you are saved and by faith you are redeemed. So you shouldn't do what you are doing. And the Jews were so apt to their beliefs, sometimes and people were killed and murdered on this issue of Christos. Of course, Christopher were kakrebi, Christos for Jews were more. And for there to be peace in the land, Claudius was fed up with in fact, the first persecution at Christopher was about from these people. And this 40,000, when they saw a Christian, the Jews will come and they will kill you. And kind of Acts 18 will be part of the story, but you have to also read a lot about history of Rome, and you will see this is real account of what happened in history. And at the bottom line, they say Claudius decided to do something very, very, brave. Or say, from AD 49, on my decree, what will you do? Free, or my has said, you need to get out of this. I don't want to see any Jew in Rome. And there was a kind of misano. Na me one of the days, I think it's in 1981 and 2, baby. It said there was a decree, a kind of war, a war, a Nigerian, no Pamo. But was that Mumubi Mokai? Every grandma can't be no more and as well because you were there. But anyway, me there's Abra Namisha, Namia Katakina, the Mekani say, Rollins, Emma, the articulators, name my name, Kofa woman, and Mika say you couldn't cononguni in a quam. I will say, because Namisha, but my father, Emma Eco Fenny and any other, because the panel, but you see your honor D, into near trap. I heard the pan on a document near Mendica, Tremor, no more tomorrow, almost so, and I was no more did not just say, Nippani Tremusa articulators in a did panacro. And that is how I picture this. Say, the Exodus, all the Jews were sent away from Rome. And you can now understand why the church entered a third phase. Said the church became a Gentile church. Asafuni na was a zero Jewish church. But you follow.
Hi.
Okay. Yenya bre and fanking kind some of this. But that leads us to the fourth church, the fourth phase. And the fourth phase was under Emperor Nero. Nero, Claudius ewuyeno in a Nero ebaye. Na Nero baye adia obeye was very, very interesting. Nero ebaye no who said Greek Jew for no free or mine, they went with their knowledge. We are talking about a group of people, and they were blessed. In terms of the heart of the city, the woman they crowd Rome, educationally, economically, any other thing was Rome. Time was Claudius Epamo Jews, sorry, the Jews, or Pamo Jews for no more and Nero by, and he saw say Omano has actually going back to rock bottom. I think he has started a room, near Menkoyi any other day. Nero invited the Jews back. He says, no. I'm going to reverse what Claudius did because Jew walk on omo the omo esika koi, omo the omo businesses koi, omo the omo enwai, omo dwapade, omo the omo bibia koi. And it affected the nation. Nero Emperor Nero said, look, I'm going to make a new deal with you guys. I want you to come because we need your money, we need your skill, we need your experience, we need economic migration, we need it. And we want to make Rome great again. We did this a time when Donald Trump, in the campaign, or say, make America great again. Who was he quoting? He was quoting somebody in history. Nero was saying, we need these people to make Rome great again. And they came now. And in history, that is so interesting. When I'm reading about somebody like Nero, the person who comes to mind is Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler did Germany so on. Germany was rock bottom. There was a lot of economic hardship. And what did he do? He decided to rebuild by inviting people, by making policies. In fact, which people did he invite? Some of the people he invited was the Jews themselves. And like I said, Nero was inviting the Jews, and I was thinking of Hitler also inviting the Jews. And it's like a photocopy of exactly what happened, as we will find out. Jews, their skills, no experience, they say, Adolf Hitler, we are going to make Germany great. Look, I want a car, I want a car for the people. What's name before so bet spark. And because we could go through the history of a year, you see how they came and they changed Germany. They made Volkswagen, car for the people. Why? Because anybody, rich, poor, anybody can sit in and it will go. Because they came up with a God-given technology. And this is what Nero did. Nero, why the Jews came, it stopped inflation. Rome started becoming a power, city again. Things were beginning to pick up and everything was happening. But let me pause here and say, when the Jews came back, they came back into where? The church. And we had the Jewish and the Gentiles coming back together. So these were the 4 stages. As we go through the book of Romans, you need to have this in your mind, because there are times that we are going to make references to some of these stages. And what time did Paul write to the Romans? It is at this time between phase 3 and 4, when the church was becoming a mixed church. This was the time, Paul, 3 and 4, when the Jewish were coming back to the church. Now, before we go into it, let me say something about Nero, because I need to mention them now. No, with them, but mommy, better wrap up in the next 10 minutes. But I want to say something, because these things are going to be important when we start opening the books, the book of Romans. Now, let's focus on somebody like Nero. Nero, we know, say through history, or a ma and nine. Well, me can say ma, there be Owari nipa and nine. Let me put it that way. The first wife, near friend of Claudia. Claudia no, was Claudius. Now on the Pamo room, Jews for no. Ne mame. Ne nana, yeah, ne ba enti. That is where Onya DNA free Claudius no. The first wife no Claudius Octavia. Wouldn't be oye Okuno eventually, because at that time Nana power has gone into Nero's head. He had done so many good things, and everybody was hailing him, the best emperor ever. And the economic hardships no wabe to a cielo. The mine is booming. The next Oba Owari near friend of Popia, Sabina. The next one was Statila and Marcelina. But the fourth person Owari and the near friend of Sporos. Now, I will mention this when we go into the book, but let me mention this. Sporos, no a bema. Now, or a bema no say young akola. And what did Nero do to him? Or my castrate no or sano. In our share no kama so oba no Owari no then the cotton. Nero was a name Rebecca said a pedophile, a homosexual, and no name even the kind of sexuality awayo. He was all over the place. I mean, you can Google Sporus, Sporus, and search about the relationship with Nero. History has talked extensively about it. So you say then a gay and then no, it has always been there, and has always been a problem, and it will continue to be a problem. But as we go through the book of Romans, we will understand why Paul take a section and address this issue in them. And it's important to know that. But how did Nero, the kinship, ends? Of course, we know Hitler ended up antagonizing and fighting the Jews. Now, Nero, there was a time. Nafi emperor no aye stable. Claudius Abeji Britain account. Rome was really at the height of his glory. Na aye on my case big emperor, no ba as a emperor no. And he said, "Sir, all the great people built something, and me Nero, I also want to build something." I say me CBB. I also see a very magnificent edifice in the center of Rome, Meme Palace, where we will live, and remodernize the whole central part to be a befitting center of the empire. Now, all history will tell you, sir, unfortunately, Rome in was clouded. Now, when I am so we had ancient buildings near the Adina. There was no space. And what did Nero do? On my the center of Rome. And that is where we got the fire in Rome. On my Rome. And this fire continued for a very long time. Any other. But we I mean, make kind of way saying, "I'm a kind Asante and Croft way, and Asante, but Omon person develop Kumansi. Na and saying race course, one name race course, Omoko could dream horse, Omomoton, near my Pamo, almost say near my baby, Pamo Honina, because we wanted to build a new shopping mall, which is a great idea. And I say, be and saying, more at the number Makola before CBC Makola mall, see, stops, he said, in crowded place. Into Uber say, Honoa, be you need to affect people. To narrow the answer or the jack one fat bulldozers near there, or the jack, not share or. But he needed to blame somebody. Said the bear won't take it out and guess who? One of blame Christians on the set fire. And why didn't he blame the Jews? Because when the Jews nearby, he needed the Jews for the economy to grow. Christians, no, what do you have? No. Everybody who was a Christian needed to be persecuted. And on one started persecution, they said, he can lead on. Into what do we know? Obia obeyi wanim se wo ye Kristo ni bia no ye chew near the aboa ayi ahyew near the word atu mfimfin ho near biem way no maberew. And that was a fine a way say nipa no ye be kune dada ti bentimi anya fan 100 na diagra adenti ne yenko no. Wild beasts were eating innocent children. How ye Kristo for why? Because of fame. Look, Obiawa followed the issue of the Holocaust to be knows what it means. And anytime you read the Holocaust and you read what Nero did, it tells you about what happens when people have power and they want glory. And in Yanonko, some of the accounts, I mean, I don't want us to digress into this history, but I want us to focus on coming into the book of Romans. And it's important, so you're Christian, what can be there? You have the picture right in front of you. Says, these places are war. He lighted, in fact, one of the philosophers, writers, or true about history, I don't know Bible, or true about the whole history about Nero, and then a friend Seneca. And he narrates some of the things that Nero, What did Nero do? Well, ne fear on a garden, when fear on a chino. No, I mean, something like pillars. Near the same year, so. Not a Christopher, ye chewa, we a Christian, a chewa. He says, I drink a driabe shemoni in ra straw, achichre home, and I hear achichre honia sona deli, nama a whole light. Yet the human being is shame near the straw, near the adena near soja ashomo. And when they are screaming and crying, now almost so timo they are parties. Anytime on a party and they use human beings. Near the omo aye lights as kania amomo parties. And that was how Nero tormented Christians. And this was the time before this Nero Ebeshi Roman before the persecution. This was the time that Paul was writing to the Romans. And now let's go back into the church to look at what happened inside the church. The book of Romans makes sense when you are reading it. Well, this is the thing. Yedika said, by the way, the fire was, I think, around 64, and Nero hung on for another 2 years. Means people saw him to be unpopular. Eventually, what happened? No, pursue journey. We ran away far east to Constantinople, which is the second kind of capital, Constantine. Eventually, Obedian, but he wanted to run away. And on one soldiers, no fell say he had done so much evil into almost a sound, say, Yamano, something like a house arrest. And he knew exactly what was happening. That was how it ended. Now, again, and Hitler, how did it end for him? History will tell you, say he committed suicide. When you do these things, a time will come, you have no value in life. But I'm just saying this as a side issue. That is not what we are focusing on. But I want you to paint the picture in your mind, because around 66, 68, Nero, the letter was written far earlier, late 50s. Paul, Troy. So this was the time that Nero had actually brought the people into the Jews, back into Rome. Now, why that Paul decided to write the longest letter. This is where it makes sense. When the Jews, believers, were coming into the church, and he found that was him.
Gentiles.
Thank you. I may check out here. Gentiles they didn't want the Jews back. The Jews, it took some time on the Gentiles and Omokoye. It's a fair mobile. Gentiles, if you want to say, no. Jew, we don't want you back, right? Yenhiamu after phase 3. Yenhiamu in the church. I didn't hear. Well, because more Jew for mo say mo na nyame yi mo ye nyame ma, you are the chosen people. But let us tell you, the man go through in history, any day say mu komo a Claudius pamo mu free has said in na ye mo mistake mo bone. God hasn't chosen you anymore. And they started what we call a replacement theology. Theology, God has now replaced the Jews with Gentiles. And they say, Jew for, and yet those chosen by God. God has chosen anybody. Yeah, Gentiles, you know. And it's will be to say Paul. So on fine sermon, because as prophecy crowd will tell, the message after the stoning of Stephen, Christopher, you preached that in our Daniel prophecy. Say a bra, ye stone Stephen, you see Stephen Abuano was a declaration. Say now the word must leave Jerusalem and go out to the Gentiles. Christopher, and it seems to me that was a kind of a message that the Jews were talking, the Gentiles were talking about. Say God now has a replacement theology because you are no more, you are replaced. Into the part of the punishment, the Claudius the Mamono. Jews were no longer the people that God was going to empty. Now God has chosen the church. The church has replaced the Jews. We need to have a church run by Jews. But the church run by Gentiles as we want it, with grace. That is the first sign. Emmanuel who said the church needed room. We have the issue of the replacement theology. Now, how do we get this? How do we know this? Medidimi and Biago, Aquila, and Priscilla. Sabrina, Paul, Ewo Corinth. Or Corinth, Juma. And the number for me, Aquila and Priscilla. Eba Paul, ho. No, Paul. They don't want us. They don't need us. Young Jew, whatever we try to do, they don't want us. They don't want us to be part of the church because they are saying, now I'm here replacing the Jews. And it is only the Christians. And I said the church. They immediately learn that they are not welcome in the church that had originally been a Jewish church. And the issue of rejection was a big thing. The book of Romans, the heart of the book from chapter 9 through to chapter 11, that is where the heart of the book we will see. Paul is seriously talking about the climax and outro letter. Say, you cannot reject the Jews. You cannot reject the Jews. That theology, that replacement theology, is false. It's false. It cannot happen. Yeah. Sorry. We need to wrap up with the Mufanche but Enti Aquila and Priscilla informed so they make the climax. Enti Yebekan, when we get to chapter 9 through to chapter 11, keep an eye on how Paul writes, the content, how he sets the premise. And my main count quickly, chapter 11. How does chapter 11 start? Into Ubusa question: has God rejected the Jews? See, the word that we use on the Greek for the country, he used the strongest word of no. Never, not in a million years. No. Don't even think about it. And that is what we will learn as we go into the book. And so why is Paul so concerned about the church in Rome? He takes his time. He is coming to the end of his ministry. He's coming to a point where he's talking on one we say a strong relationship because but he's dealing with a very important issue that needs to be addressed. And the letter said a bit me address this issue. The last thing this issue no here Paul say a choir echo room the same equine in a living room. What goes into Rome came out of Rome, meaning say the splits or the confusion was going to actually, it was going to threaten everything that Paul had done. Paul has spent a lifetime in Yunano trying to evangelize non-Jews to become Christians, Gentiles to become Christians. If there was going to be a problem in Rome, as the capital city, as the place where everybody goes, where trade, the heart of the empire, his fear was it was going to be a problem for the Jews and it was going to be a problem for the non-Jews. And he needed to carefully, cleverly, and under the unction of the Holy Spirit, tread on a very, very careful line. Say, I'm not going to hurt the Jews and I'm not going to hurt the Gentiles, but I'm going to state the obiaya enye and the obiaya eye. And because of this, Paul wrote the book of Romans. Why did Paul write the book of Romans? I didn't know Paul wrote the book of Romans. He wrote it because he wanted people to know their faith, to know, so whoever they belong to, whatever they are made up of, they still had a part to play in salvation. And he took his time and addressed this issue. In the book of Romans, Paul doesn't talk about repentance because it wasn't dealing with sin in a way. Said you because the sin was very clear. So he was dealing with repentance, because this is sin. In Rome, to the Romans, and a book you wouldn't also see much about eschatology. Say, the second coming near the other. Because that wasn't the problem. The problem was about unity, but unity not as in divisions, but unity because of our belief, because of who we are, because of our ethnic group, because of our foundation, because of who we are. And it is so important, sir. Paul takes his time to address this. Why? At the end of the book of Romans, people be a lasting impact on them. You know what I've come to realize? I personally think, say, especially as Assembly Adventist Church, where the church has gotten to the Asafunako Druno, we need the book of Romans more than any other book. And I'll tell you why. Because the church is divided. One scholar, Eka, said, Asafimono, we have different type of Seventh-day Adventists, and we have about 7. They were almost very, very skilled to the law side. They think, say, we must be something like the Jews. You know, Emmanuel, we see this so to say the Jews. And now we have those who also think, say, Emmanuel, we is grace, Adam. And within these two extreme ends, we have 7 different categories in there. I don't know where you fit and where I fit. And the question is, what can we learn from the book of Romans? Let me tell you another thing. It is not also good to stay in the middle grounds, because the last time I became Revelation chapter 3, I say, so we new and now we are share and come be positive. It is staying in the middle grounds where you are neither Jew nor Gentile. It's even worse. And we will learn as we go through the book of Romans. Say, every single one of us need a conversion of heart and mind to know. I don't know much about Bracknell Church, but let me say this. I wouldn't be surprised to say in Bracknell Church, there will be some group of people who think, say, and what's the Yema say? Because one Yema say I was sorry. And there will be a group of church members, they will think, say, it doesn't matter. So there will be any idea is okay, we need to carry on and move things forward. The book of Romans is going to teach you and I'm praying, say the 4 people I come who are seven. Or more experience, or the encounter they had with the book of Romans. And yes, some of them were even priests, some of them were elders, some of them were just church members, some of them were affluent people, some of them were whoever. But when they came in contact with God through the book of Romans, their life changed, their theology changed, their Christianity changed. And they started looking at people differently. And that is why personally I have become so passionate about the book of Romans. And I believe, unfortunately, time and into questions are not but I believe it was all necessary. You build the grounds. Next lesson, I'm not even sure. I'll go into the book straight, because there's one more thing I want us to build up before we go in. And sana yashe the text na kasase. But ene ye the basic has say na yamebua yeshia ya tuaso. Yamenka ya ho. Da question over to you. Minim say bia but
it's worth it. It's worth it. It didn't miss it. It's some Pastor Bishop so mommy say trusty a pastor interest of my name for additional and Mary. The next time they be more questions about Pastor share some money.
But you're me sure. I mean, there was a Saudi fat and church say the book of Romans. I say there was a challenge. I would my in Pubra in me woman say a woman would now someone would ma Wakua Paul, some of me we are singing the who hear my and so. The essence was sorry be a comem. Na the issue, a bemaye, a brass, a sunny ben where there was it. So a tea empire book. Or whom it then because we shall brack now, shall be or buy the shah was up way to dim. Amen.
Amen.
Actually,